right, Sinister Plotters, welcome back. You guys remember our deep dive into Metalstar Chapter 7 last week?
Oh, yeah. That was a wild one.
Well, get ready, because today we're diving even deeper into Chapter 8. Buckle up, because it's a real roller coaster. With John Darby taking charge, intense survival training, and even some deep philosophical questions that'll really make you think.
Plus, we've got some awesome insights straight from the author Aaron Hill from the Metalstar Luminarium.
Yeah, plus a recap of the story so far. So if you haven't already, grab a copy of Metalstar, check out Chapter 8, and get ready to go deep.
Seriously, you guys are in for a treat with this chapter. It jumps right into the action, with John Darby stepping up as a leader.
Yeah, we saw him kind of start to emerge as a leader before, right? But now he's full on, like, training this whole group of newly rescued humans to go up against those terrifying Sky Reapers.
And remember, a lot of these people are just barely hanging on. Malnourished, weak.
Right? It's crazy to think they're even trying to get them ready for combat. I mean, we're talking months of intense training.
Yeah, it really shows you the harsh reality of this world. Survival is not guaranteed. And it's not just about learning to fight. It's about rebuilding, retraining, starting from scratch.
And what I found so interesting is how Hill shows us all these different training styles. You've got John with his hardcore military background, very disciplined and by the book.
Right, then you've got Poe and Ideo, who are all about martial arts and that inner strength.
And then you can't forget Rensa and Dade. Their methods are intense.
To say the least.
Yeah, let's just say they're not for the faint of heart.
Hill is exploring these different facets of humanity, right? How we all react differently under pressure.
Totally. Like some people, like John, fall back on what they know, their training, their discipline, while others, like Poe, find strength in philosophy, ancient wisdom, and inner peace.
And then you have those like Renza and Dade who just embrace that brutal survival of the fittest mentality.
It's a fascinating mix of personalities, for sure. There's actually this crazy anecdote about Poe. He's meditating with the recruits, all zen and peaceful.
Right, emphasizing the importance of breath control.
And this one recruit, totally disrespectful, interrupts him.
Oh no, what happened?
So Poe calmly walks over to him and punches him right in the throat.
Wow.
Talk about a wake-up call.
Yeah, talk about a contradiction to all that inner peace talk. But it definitely gets the point across how serious this training is. There's no time for games when survival is on the line.
Absolutely. And, it kind of makes you think about Poe's character a little differently too, right?
Totally. Is it a moment of hypocrisy or is it a calculated move? It really adds a new layer to him.
Oh, for sure. But getting back to the training itself, it's not just about learning how to fight. John also puts a huge emphasis on survival skills, the absolute essentials.
Which makes sense. It's like, what good is being a great fighter if you can't find food or water?
Exactly. So he drills them on the 5 basic priorities: water purification,
Shelter construction,
building a fire,
emergency signaling.
and how to find food any way you can. It's like a post-apocalyptic Boy Scouts manual.
This is Survival 101, and it's crucial because they're being prepped for life in the wastelands.
The wastelands, yeah. The areas beyond those creepy alien-controlled gardens. It sounds brutal out there.
Oh, absolutely brutal. Like, finding clean water can literally be the difference between life and death out there.
And John doesn't sugarcoat anything. He goes super in-depth about the Sky Reapers, too. Like, how they're built differently than us, what their weak points are.
Yeah, it's not like fighting another human, right? Their vital organs are protected by, like, layers of bone and cartilage. In the Luminarium, he even compares them to elephants in terms of their anatomy and vulnerabilities. He emphasizes how different they are from humans, how you have to approach them differently. There's even a line where he tells his recruits, the typical vulnerabilities of a human aren't found in these beasts. It will be required that you use different methods of assault.
So, like, bullets or knives aren't going to do much good, which is kind of terrifying, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah, totally terrifying.
And there's this part where he literally uses one of the recruits as a demonstration dummy to show how to fight them.
Oh, wow, that's intense.
Yeah. It's like you got to use their weight against them, aim for those very specific weak points,
Yeah.
and be super resourceful.
I mean, like, using a rock, a broken pipe, whatever you can get your hands on, whatever gives you an advantage.
Right. It's about adapting, being creative, and thinking outside the box. Because in the wastelands, every little advantage counts.
I'm kind of starting to like John Darby. He's like,
He is growing on me, too.
he's tough, but he's also like, he gets it.
He understands what these people have been through. Yeah. And that whole scene where he's talking about fear and survival, it's like he's pushing them hard, but he's not breaking them.
And John, he keeps going back to that psychology of survival. even breaks it down into an acronym, SURVIVAL. S for size up the situation. Use all available resources. Remember where you are. It's easy to get disoriented out there, so knowing your location is key.
Yeah. And V for?
Vanquish fear and panic.
Makes sense. You got to keep a cool head to make good decisions.
Exactly. I for improvise, V for value life, A for act decisively, and L for learn from your experience.
I love how Hill really gets into those details.
Yeah, the nitty-gritty.
Yeah. It's not just like, oh, they're learning to survive. It's like, no, this is how you actually do it.
And we really see this tested when John starts prepping the recruits for their first mission into the wastelands.
Their first mission.
Yep. It's a reconnaissance mission, scouting the area, mapping terrain, gathering essential gear. But it's also like a real trial by fire.
Oh, absolutely. They've got to put all that training into practice.
Right. And there's this really cool moment where John shows Soldier how to use an atlatl.
An atlatl.
Yeah, it's like this ancient spear-throwing weapon.
Wow, so old school.
Exactly. It's like this bridge between the past and the future. This reminder that even in this high-tech world, sometimes the simplest tools can be the most effective.
It's about adaptation, right?
Yeah.
Finding what works and using it to your advantage.
Exactly. And John really builds up the anticipation for this mission. He gives this whole rousing speech reminding them that what they're doing will be remembered.
Wow.
Yeah, like they're not just soldiers, they're pioneers forging a new path for humanity.
It's pretty inspiring stuff. But then, just as we're getting swept up in all this hope and determination.
The chapter ends on such a cliffhanger. It leaves us hanging, dying to know more.
Right. But before we dive into all that and start making predictions, let's take a look at what the author himself has to say about Chapter 8. Let's go into the Metalstar Luminarium.
The Luminarium is always packed with so much extra info. You can really tell the author put a lot of thought into it. It's like getting a peek behind the curtain. And for Chapter 8, he focuses on this theme of survival through fighting. Like, it's brutal, but that's the reality these characters face.
And he's not afraid to call out those in power. Like, he compares Sid Mantless, that domed city we saw in Chapter 7, remember?
Yeah.
All about religion and government and keeping order.
Right, and he contrasts that with Solos, that lawless city where it's every man for himself.
Yeah. And he points out how Sid Mantless is actually pretty hypocritical. Like, they pretend to be all civilized, but there's a lot of darkness lurking beneath the surface.
It's such a good point, right? Like, can true order even exist without freedom? Even if that freedom sometimes leads to chaos.
It makes you think, for sure. But even with all the bleak stuff, Aaron Hill still manages to weave in this thread of hope, which I really appreciate.
Oh, totally.
He talks about how humanity's only chance is to find unity, not just within groups, but like a bigger unity of purpose.
Yeah, like putting aside old differences and working together.
Yeah, exactly. And then he takes us even deeper, talking about the structure of the story itself. He says it's a three-part structure: Genesis, Medius, and Terminus, like mirroring those classic three acts in a play.
Oh, that's cool. So where are we now?
He says we're moving into the Medius phase, which means things are about to get even more intense.
Buckle up, everybody. Things are about to get real. And he also talks about this whole idea of the battle between order and disorder, which I found super interesting. Like how disorder can actually lead to creation.
Whoa. Can you give an example of that?
Well, he uses the Big Bang as an example. Like without that initial chaos, the universe wouldn't even exist. And then, get this, he reveals the full text of Trinidad's prophecy.
Oh my God, yes. That part gave me chills.
I know, right? Those cryptic lines about a savior rising, wielding alien power in the final fight.
So epic, but also kind of terrifying. Like, what does it all mean?
Exactly. And that line about a child whose cry will heal the wounded earth, mind-blowing.
Okay, guys, I need your theories. Who is this child? Could it be Sarah?
Maybe. Remember, she's got that strange alien weapon arm.
True. Or could it be someone we haven't even met yet?
Anything is possible at this point.
I can't wait to see what happens next. Hit us up on social media using the hashtag #MetalStarDeepDive.
Yeah, spill the tea. We want to hear all your theories about that prophecy.
But before we get too lost in predictions, let's circle back to the characters. In the Luminarium, Aaron Hill describes John as an ex-military clone, which helps explain why he's so driven.
Yeah, it dives into his past as a gunnery sergeant, his struggle to adapt to this post-apocalyptic world. He's seen a lot of darkness, and it's definitely left its mark.
We see this in his conversation with Wax Griffin, the bunker admin guy, right?
Yeah.
They're talking about how urgent everything is, how they don't have much time to prepare.
And Wax is worried about rushing things, but John's like, we can't wait. He knows what the Sky Reapers are capable of, and every second counts.
And it's not just about survival, right? It's about protecting the people he cares about, making sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that sense of responsibility is huge for him. He's not just fighting for himself, he's fighting for the future.
And it's interesting how the author connects John's military training with his boxing experience. He talks about the 4 key elements of a punch: speed, accuracy, force, and direction.
And he applies that same logic to all the training he's giving. He's not just teaching them how to fight, he's teaching them how to be warriors.
Yeah, like how to anticipate your opponent's moves, how to find their weaknesses, how to be one step ahead.
Exactly. But he also has this softer side, like there's this one scene where a recruit challenges his authority.
Oh yeah, that part.
And instead of getting into a power struggle, John just walks away. He could see the recruit was already on edge, and he didn't want to escalate the situation.
Which I thought was super insightful. It shows that he's not just a tough guy, he's also compassionate. He understands the pressure everyone's under.
Right, and that sometimes choosing not to fight is actually the stronger move.
Totally.
Yeah.
And he's such a good contrast to Poe, who has this whole different approach to survival.
The Luminarium tells us more about Poe's backstory.
Apparently he lost his wife, but not to the Sky Reapers. Another human was responsible.
Yeah, that really adds another layer to his character, doesn't it?
It makes you think about the different kinds of trauma people are carrying in this world.
And how they're coping, how they're finding ways to rebuild trust and hope in such a broken place. But even with all that pain, he's still become this mentor figure. He draws on ancient Chinese practices like Qigong, focusing on harnessing your qi.
Yeah, that inner energy.
Right. He teaches meditation, visualization techniques. He helps people find their inner strength, that resilience that allows them to face their fears.
Oh, I love that line he tells one of the recruits. It's okay to be scared. We don't bury the scared, we bury the dead.
So good, right? It's such a powerful reminder that fear is a natural human emotion, but it doesn't have to control us.
It's all about finding that balance, that inner strength to push through even when it's hard. And then, of course, there's Jake.
Oh, yeah, our main man.
The Luminarium reminds us of his distinct look, brown skin, braided hair, highlighting how in this world, racial lines have kind of blurred.
It's like that shared struggle for survival has created this new kind of melting pot.
Exactly. But even in this more unified world, Jake's still figuring things out. Like there's this scene where he tries to break up a fight between 2 recruits.
Oh, right. And Poe stops him.
Yeah, he's like, this is how they work things out. Let him go at it.
It's a good reminder that even in this world where humanity is literally fighting for its existence, cultural differences still exist. And Jake, who's been on his own for so long, is still learning to navigate all those nuances.
It's all part of his journey, right?
Totally. Understanding those differences is just as important as learning how to survive and fight.
Absolutely.
They've lost so much, they're constantly having to adapt, make do with what they have.
Yeah, like it's MacGyver meets Mad Max.
Totally. And it's also a reminder that they're going up against an enemy that's way more advanced, so they have to be clever. It's about leveling the playing field.
Using their brains as much as their brawn.
Yeah, it's so exciting. The story just keeps getting better and better.
I'm totally hooked. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm just blown away by how much is going on. The training, the mission into the wastelands, the prophecy, and all those deep questions about survival, unity, what it even means to be human.
It's mind-blowing for sure. And as readers, we get to be a part of it all, to guess what's coming next, to try and put the pieces together.
Exactly. So, Sinister plotters, if you haven't already, go grab a copy of Metalstar and check out Chapter 8 for yourselves. And then hit us up with your thoughts.
Yeah, head over to www.metalstar.us and join the discussion. And don't forget to use the hashtag #MetalstarDeepDive.
We want to hear all your theories, your predictions, anything and everything Metalstar.
And until next time, keep those pages turning and those sinister plots brewing.